So, one of the things we like to say is when the people of God write a different script, we find that elected officials tend to play a different part. And so it's critically important. So, on the one hand, it's great for us to have these speakers come and speak, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is for all 600 of you to actually be with us on days like this. And it truly, literally could not be done without you. Quick reminder before we get to our next speaker that so the inner circle for Georgia Faith and Freedom is really what kind of makes that's like the coal in the engine that makes this thing work. So anybody that joins today, again, you're going to get a signed Sid Bream baseball, and if you sign at a certain level or above, we can also maybe get Mac to come play catch with you, either in your backyard or in the front yard of your office. That's $25,000 and above, by the way. So listen, so there are kind of there's the legislative element of public policy making, but there also is just this cultural element, right? That the kind of the winds and whims, if you will, of our culture can play significant roles, and so it's always a real blessing for me, and I think for all of us, whenever we see people with public profiles to take strong stands on issues related to biblical truth. And our next speaker has been a stalwart of exactly that, really, for decades. Who knew that Sid Bream was actually a graduate in 1981 of Liberty University? Did y'all know that? So everybody just thought he was a first baseman. He actually was a Liberty grad. But listen, since he's left professional baseball, Sid has been a champion for life, for religious liberty, for marriage and family issues. And it is an absolute blessing for us to have Sid with us today. Please join me in welcoming Sid Bream.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is that on? It's a real honor and a real joy for me to be up here in front of you. I'm honored. I mean, I don't deserve to be up here with all the distinguished guests that have been up here speaking, and I'll also say this. I mean, about 3 weeks ago, Mac and I were talking, and I asked him, I said, well, what should be my attire and what should be how many minutes am I going to be able to speak up there? And he said, unfortunately, we got a pretty filled slate, and so I'm only going to give you about 7 to 10 minutes. And he's sitting there apologizing to me, and in the background, I'm really thinking, Mac, could you find a couple more speakers and maybe give me 3 to 5 minutes? That would be really, really good. But folks, I'm really here because of one thing that happened back on October 14th of 1992. How many of you all remember where were you when Sid slid? I mean, I was so fortunate to be a part of that opportunity for the Atlanta Braves, and a lot of you. Let me ask you this question now: how many of you all thought Bobby Cox should have had somebody out there running at second base? I mean, instead of me? Yeah, you saw a bunch of no. But folks, I mean, I want you to understand something. Bobby Cox knew how fast I was because I beat Damon Berryhill in a high-stakes race. I even have the voucher on my phone right now, the picture of the voucher that Bobby Cox put $20 on me that I was going to beat Damon Berryhill in a race. So I want you to know how great and fast I was. He had all the confidence in the world in me. But I do have to tell you this as well. I got beat by Deion Sanders in a race. This was the bad part, though. He was running backwards when I was running forward. So that's kind of embarrassing for me, but at the same time, God put me in that particular place because I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have been on second base. I mean, he should have had a pitcher run for me. They'd have been in the dugout by the time that I got to home plate. But I mean, God had a specific purpose, and that purpose was to be able to go all over the world and tell people about my faith in Jesus Christ. So today, I mean, that was the big thing, but I want to just share with you I want to share with you that one of my most favorite seasons in the game of baseball, and that was the 1991 season. And I got to set this all up because, I came from Pittsburgh. And in 1990, we were how much time do I have? They only gave me 7 minutes. I was supposed to have 10. But we were we had just gotten beat by the Cincinnati Reds. And the Pittsburgh management came out and said, Sid Bream's our first priority to sign for the 1991 season. So my wife and I were ecstatic that we were going to be playing in Pittsburgh have a multi-year contract and so on and so forth. Well, that didn't happen. The Atlanta Braves gave me a great contract to come down here and so on and so forth. But John Sherholtz did a great job of bringing individuals in to help a team that had a bunch of young studs like Tommy Glavine and John Smoltz and David Justice and Ronnie Gant and so on and so forth. He wanted to bring some people in that were going to help them win. And one of the things that Terry Pendleton and myself, we started to sit down, and Bobby gave us the opportunity to do this, but he gave us the opportunity to go in and have team meetings. And one of the things that we realized, as far as these young guns were concerned, they didn't know how to win. They didn't think about when they stepped between those lines that one thing needed to be taking place in their minds, and that was to win. They were thinking about me, how good I could do, what I was all about. And so Terry and I, all of a sudden, we started to have team meetings, and we started to really push the we aspect of it all, the sacrifice, the we of what we're supposed to be all about. And then, I don't know if you remember that season, but we were 9.5 games out. The stadium was still between 2,500 to 5,000 people in the stands. But at the All-Star break, like I said, we were 9.5 games out. And then we had a 9-game run, and things started to change. I watched these young guys that didn't know how to win. All of a sudden, when they stepped between those lines, they started to say, we're going to win this ball game. I watched individuals, and Terry Pendleton was our best captain on the team. And Terry Pendleton being one of the leaders as far as average and stuff like that. He won the MVP the one year in 1992. He would sacrifice in order to put the onus on David Justice, who was coming up behind him, in order to get that guy in from third base. He promoted what it's all about as far as teams concerned. And I guess that's what I want to ask you guys here today. That we can sit here and talk about politics. We can talk about issues and so on and so forth. But if I had the opportunity to ask your spouse or your kids or your staff what you were all about, if they could be honest with me, what would they say? Would they say that you're a we player or a me player? Folks, we need more we players. We need to have those individuals that are willing to sacrifice, to serve. And let me just share with you, the greatest person in the world that showed us how to do that was Jesus Christ. And what did Jesus Christ say? Jesus Christ said, I didn't come to be served, but to serve. He also shared that, folks, when it came to washing the disciples' feet, he said, go and do thou likewise. When we start doing that as leaders, we're going to see a nation come together. So, folks, I hope and pray that you'll start thinking about are you a we player in your families, or are you a me player, and start to change if you're a me player. And then the last thing is, just a scenario. And I only have 10 seconds, but it's got to be quick. If the doctor just gave you guys 24 hours to live, what would you do with that 24 hours? Think about it. Statistics says this. First thing that people do is they start to get around their families, to tell them that they're going to miss them, that they love them. Second thing that they do, statistics says, is they start to think about their regrets. And they start to go out and they start to ask forgiveness for relationships that have been broken. And they probably do that because of what the third thing is. The third thing is they start to think about eternity. My challenge for each one of us in here is this. Why do we have to have a doctor tell us we have 24 hours to live? before we start thinking about our families a little bit more. And if we have regrets, if we have family issues, if we have friend issues that we busted apart, why don't we be men and women enough to go to those individuals and ask for forgiveness, to restore that relationship? And then the last thing is, why don't we start thinking about eternity? Because folks, we're only one breath away from eternity. There's your life. There's your life. I don't care if you live to be Methuselah's age, there's your life, but out there's eternity. Folks, I know without a shadow of a doubt, if I died right now, I'd be in heaven with Jesus Christ. What about you? Thank you, God bless, and may God bless our country.